You're listening to the Valley Labor Report with David Story and Jacob Morrison.
Let's go!
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host, David Story. Today is the last Saturday of the month, which means it is Open Line Saturday. We're taking calls all day. 1-866-494-9866 is the number. We're coming to you commercial-free, courtesy of the Alabama AFL-CIO. On the line, we've got George Hamilton called in. George is the president of the International Federation of Professional and Technical Employees, of Professional and Technical Engineers at NASA. So, George, I appreciate you taking the time to call in. Thank you so much.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Morning. So, George, you may not know this, but last week we talked to a sister from the same international as you. We talked to Kayla Blado. She's the president of the nonprofit Professional Employees Union, and so we talked some about white-collar unionism, why unions aren't just for blue-collar folks, and I wanted to get a kind of Alabama perspective on the same topic. I thought that would be good. I thought it'd be good for our listeners. We got a bunch of folks on the Arsenal that listen to the show. So George, you're the president of the Engineers Union at NASA. Tell us a little bit about what you do, like professionally. What's your job over at NASA?
So human factors engineering is what I came in the door for.
All right.
A long time ago. Think space ergonomics.
All right. I don't know much what that means.
You threw us for a curve on that one. We're both going.
But
it sounds like an
engineering job. How about fitting jobs to people? How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. All right. And so, So you're the president of the Engineers Union at NASA, and something that I'm in another federal employee union. I'm in AFGE, and so you and I are federal employees, and one of the things that I get all the time, and we're white collar workers. Both of us have college degrees,
yes.
And I get all the time. Well, why do you need a union? Why do you need a union, George?
So I would offer several things. We represent folks who are in trouble. That doesn't happen real often, but we can advise an employee on a response to a disciplinary action, and sometimes we get that reduced. I would also note that we have the opportunity to help shape policy, and we often hear what's going on before it goes down, and there are times when we get a heads up that our local HR folks have not heard yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of and it also gives you a say in your work environment as well. That's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest benefits, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that you have that ability to push a more worker oriented workplace, a place that is more friendly to what your workers' needs are. And I'm sure COVID brings up a very important aspect of that, and allowing people to work from home and things like that. So I'm sure y'all have a big say in that as well.
Currently, about 90% of the civil service workforce is working from home, and that's been since March.
Which is a great thing. Which protects workers and allows them to continue earning a living and keeping their family safe.
And not to mention investing in the community, because we got to buy stuff.
Yeah.
What kind of?
If I could.
Oh no, go ahead.
If I could just launch into a few quick comments. So we're Local 27 at Marshall Space Flight Center. We represent the non-manager scientists and engineers. The bargaining unit is about 1,350 folks. And most of the rest of the civil service employees are represented by AFGE. We were chartered in the early 1970s after a botched reduction in force or RIF. And as I mentioned, NASA has two unions representing civil service folks, IFPTE and AFGE. More than half of the NASA employees are represented by unions. IFPTE has about 80,000 members. We're small compared to AFGE at about 700,000. We are international as we have some Canadian locals. We've got three sectors. Federal, that's us. NASA, TVA, Corps of Engineers, Library of Congress, immigration judges, Navy, civilians at shipyards, and the General Services Administration. You've heard about them recently in the presidential transition.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the federal folks. The second sector is state and municipal workers, New Jersey Turnpike workers, for example. Our third section is commercial, and there Boeing is the biggest union in our commercial section. I would say that we have good relations with management. We get invited to some senior level meetings, and we also meet with HR twice a month and our center operations leadership monthly. Both groups will answer a phone call or an email. We do an annual legislative week in D.C., and that sometimes overlaps with our AFGE brothers and sisters. IFPTE has national consultation rights, so we review proposed policy, as does AFGE.
Right.
And we work together with AFGE. Both groups are one local short for national bargaining rights. We are invited to new employee orientation and new supervisor orientation, and we get our 15 minutes of fame there. Why join? As I mentioned, opportunity to help shape policy, hear what's going on before it happens, and it's useful to have eyes and ears in the workforce. Many times, our members will bring up something that's going on, maybe that's a little out of sorts, and we wouldn't know about that unless we had eyes and ears out in the workforce.
Right.
You mentioned the RIF early on, and I'm real interested in that because I work at the Machinist Union over at United Launch Alliance, and we've tried unsuccessfully a couple of times to bring in our engineers, and they're unorganized, and something that we see consistently is the influx of young engineers such as Jacob who are good workers, but we've lost so much tribal knowledge. We see the older engineers being forced out, and sometimes not even forced out, just completely let go to the company's detriment. But they see it as cost savings because they've got these young guns ready to come in and work for half of what everybody else is working for. So do y'all have the same protections as far as seniority goes? And that's something that I'm constantly preaching with the engineers, is building that seniority to where you get to determine when you want to leave work, not relying on the company to say when you're going to.
So far, we do have a seniority-based RIF system, and there are bump and recession rights. There have been proposals to change that. So far, those have not borne fruit.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, that's good news because you definitely want to. That's one of the driving forces behind labor movement in general, in my opinion, is that ability to come in. If you come in early, then you get to stay however long you choose to stay, barring any, improprieties in the workplace, of course.
Yeah, well, and George, one of the things, especially for federal employees, our wages and things like that are set by Congress, and so we don't do. There's a lot of the bargaining that private sector unions do that we don't do, even though there's lots of stuff at the local level that is still very important that your local and that my local does. But as far as the wages and stuff, it's important to have these national organizations that are run by and for workers, so that, like you said, we have that annual legislative convention that sometimes overlaps with IFPTE, and we have worker lobbyists. I have lobbied Alabama's congressional delegation on workers' rights in the federal workforce, and we fought one of Trump's budgets would have cut federal federal worker pay. It would have cut our leave. It would have cut our health care. It would have made it easier to get rid of us and stuff like that. And we went up there and we fought that budget that he put out there, no doubt with y'all. And we were able to not only fight off pay cuts, we got a pay raise, and things like that wouldn't be able to happen if we didn't have these concerted efforts by and for workers from across the nation. I think stuff
I
like
would
that's real
offer
important.
that most of what we do in D.C. I would refer to as advocacy, and NASA's projects, perhaps like Corps of Engineers, are rather long-term, years to decades. And so we kind of have to go down the middle of the road. And so we go talk to our Democratic and our Republican representatives. And we basically talk about the things that we agree on. And we kind of go light on the things that we disagree on. As you mentioned, Jacob, federal unions are a bit of a strange bunch in that we cannot strike and that we cannot bargain over wages. And so I like to say that leaves us with a couple of tools, and that's good ideas and shame, and we use each appropriately.
Right. George, it's been really great talking to you. I really appreciate you taking the time to give us a call. It really means a lot. Tell folks that let's say that we've got some people that are listening that work at NASA, or they know somebody that works at NASA. How do they join your union?
There is a form to fill out. Imagine that, a government form.
I think we've all got forms we have to fill out.
So I think the short version is that they could contact me, 256-348-5181, or it's probably the best way.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I would look forward to talking to them.
If people are out there driving in the car and don't jot that down, they can always message us at the show, and we can put them in touch with you as well. So don't have a wreck trying to write that number down.
Right. Yeah, you can
Certainly not.
DM the page, and we'll get his number to you. So, George, thanks so much for calling. We're gonna let you go. So, folks, if you work at NASA, make sure you get in touch with George. If you didn't get that number, shoot us a message and we'll get it to you. He is the president for the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers at the Marshall Space Flight Center. George Hamilton. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your time. If you want to see what we're up to throughout the week and get our snide quips about the news of the day, then you should follow us on social media. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Valley Labor Report. We're on Twitter at Labor Reporters. I'm on Twitter at JacobM_AL. David is on Twitter at Radical Unionist. That's spelled RADICL Unionist. If you missed part of the show and want to go back and watch it later, search YouTube for The Valley Labor Report and subscribe to our channel. You can go back and watch the full show there, and we also clip segments throughout the week. And we also upload the program on more than 11 different podcasting apps. So you can see if we're on your listening platform of choice. You can go to thevalleylaborreport.transistor.fm/subscribe. And if you appreciate our work and want to help us stay on the air, then consider throwing us a couple dollars a month on patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report.